They're famous for their unconventional lifestyles.
The Redgrave dynasty is so epic in its emotional upheaval, the divorces, the triumphs, that it seems almost unbelievable.
They're famous for their ardent political views.
The conventional view is pity about the politics, great actors, if only they'd keep quiet.
This is absolute rubbish, all this talk about anti-Semitism.
Then they became famous for tragedy.
Natasha Richardson. I still can't believe she's gone. It's an amazing hole that will never be filled.
It just seems almost too much for one family to have to bear.
But through it all, they have always been known for excellence on stage and screen.
No sooner is a new one born than you feel as if, oh, let's clear a space on the shelf for their eventual Tony, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, whatever word you want to mention.
For those who don't believe that talent can be genetic, I think they're living proof that it can be genetic.
By the first decade of the 21st century, the Redgrave family had achieved an unprecedented level of fame.
Probably in England, you know, the Redgraves would be akin to the Kennedys in terms of the fame of the name.
The Redgraves are the British theatre. In all their contradictions, in all their variety, in all their ups and downs, in all their greatness, and sometimes their not so greatness.
Stardom had passed from the acclaimed actor Sir Michael Redgrave to his famous daughters, Vanessa and Lynn. Vanessa's daughter Natasha was famous both in Hollywood and on Broadway. Her sister Jolie was on a hit television show. In fact, several more Redgraves were working actors. Natasha's husband, Liam Neeson, had become one of cinema's biggest stars. The family seemed to have the Midas touch. Then, tragedy struck.
Despite a great deal of speculation, we still have no official word on Natasha Richardson.
Fans learned first that Natasha Richardson was in a minor skiing accident, but soon it was clear the injury wasn't minor at all. Within a day, the world was shocked to hear that this star of stage and screen had died of an epidural hematoma, internal bleeding within her skull.
You know, when something like that happens so quickly, you're just in shock.
It was a tiny accident. It shouldn't have led to her death.
Then the horrible news kept coming. Just over a year later, Vanessa and Lynn's brother, the well-known political figure and actor Corin Redgrave, was dead. And just a month after that, the beloved actress Lynn Redgrave succumbed to a long battle with breast cancer.
The tragedies that Vanessa Redgrave endured are unthinkable. She lost her daughter, her brother, and her sister all within a year.
Yet Vanessa Redgrave endured and even triumphed.
Most people, having lost the that many family members, would just curl up in a ball and disappear, you know? But Vanessa is extraordinary, and she went back on the stage and giving this incredible performance and driving Miss Daisy.
In some ways, going back to work was the only thing the Redgraves, the Richardsons, and Liam Neeson could do. After all, they are linked by a theatrical heritage dating back 6 generations. And as everyone knows, in the theater, the show must go on. The Redgrave family business has been the theater for well over a century. Vanessa and Lynn's grandfather, Roy Redgrave, made his stage debut in 1899 and became a silent movie legend in Australia. Roy's wife, Margaret Daisy Scudamore, was an acclaimed actress who herself came from a theatrical family. And Roy and Daisy's son, Michael, born March 20th, 1908, would grow up to be one of Britain's most celebrated and most conflicted actors. Over the course of his lifetime, Michael Redgrave would have a huge impact on the British theater. But one show that had an impact on him was Flowers of the Forest, in which he was cast opposite a beautiful actress named Rachel Kempson in 1935. They fell in love hard and fast and married within a matter of weeks, but from the start, it was clear this would not be a conventional marriage.
I don't think he attempted to disguise it, and I think he warned her that, you know, he was bisexual. And obviously she went into the marriage accepting that, maybe in the belief that she could totally transform him. I don't know.
Their first child, Vanessa, was born January 30th, 1937. 2.5 years later, on July 16th, 1939, came a son, Corin. And 7 weeks later to the day, Britain and France declared war on Germany. When the Germans began bombing London with V-1 and V-2 rockets in the so-called blitzes, the parents decided to send their children to a safer place.
You couldn't have an idea of what it's like to be in a city that's being bombed. Actually, to be in it.
We spent 2 or 3 years staying, first of all, with an elderly cousin and then an elderly aunt, looked after by our nanny, and saw our parents rather rarely.
At the height of World War II came Redgrave baby number 3, Lynn. It was a loving household, but one in which the children were raised primarily by nannies, as the parents were often working. When they were home, life in the Redgrave household was dominated by Michael's work.
Michael, my grandfather, was apparently the kind of guy that whatever part he was in or doing at the time came home with him.
In other words, the world revolved around his work as an actor. And so, obviously, the family at different times must have felt shut out or marginalized or excluded. I think Lynn felt that most closely.
But he used to write notes to fellow actors, criticizing their performances, and he wrote notes to children, criticizing their behavior. Not a good habit, not one to be imitated. I think I might have written 1 or 2 notes back, crossly, saying if you have something to say to me, say it in person or something like that.
Part of the distance Michael kept from his children had to do with the double life he was leading. Over the years, he'd had various male lovers whom he had invited to live with the family. Rachel knew, but it was kept a secret from his children and from the outside world.
People didn't declare their sexuality as they do now because of fear of the law. So Michael Redgrave, for much of his life, had to lead a closeted sexual existence.
None of us knew as children. These were Bob and Fred. They were like our family. But we didn't know how really family they were.
It was also fairly widely known that Rachel had a very long affair with Glenn Byam-Shaw, the director, which went on for 20 or 30 years. Now, without that affair, I think she would have found it very hard to put up with Michael's bisexuality.
Professionally, Michael was still in his prime. He was nominated for an Academy Award in 1947 for Best Actor in Morning Becomes Electra. Then, in 1951, he joined the Shakespeare Memorial Theatre Company in Stratford-upon-Avon, birthplace of William Shakespeare. The children came to visit on holidays, and it was only a matter of time before all 3 would decide to go into the family business. Vanessa and Lynn studied drama. Corin studied classics. And by 1961, all 3 had gotten their first big breaks. It was a 1961 stage performance that brought Vanessa Redgrave her first acclaim.
The greatest performance I saw Vanessa Redgrave give was at Stratford-on-Avon, and she played Rosalind in Shakespeare's As You Like It.
You'll be told that Vanessa's Rosalind was the great Shakespearean performance, and perhaps it was. Certainly there was an extraordinary kind of elfin quality about that gangling Rosalind.
Vanessa Redgrave's Rosalind has never, ever, ever been forgotten.
It wasn't just critics who fell for this beautiful and talented young actress. So did her brother's boss. Corin had gone to work for the director, Tony Richardson.
He thought her the greatest actress alive. And this was before he'd even met her. He was completely smitten by her enormous talent.
Vanessa quickly fell in love with Tony. Corin was working with him. It was only a matter of time before their little sister Lynn got in on the act. She was 18 years old and in her final year of drama school when she went against her principal's advice and auditioned for the role of Helena in Tony's production of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
And I got the job. So now I have this terrible dilemma. One is I've gone against the principal, which in those days, and also what do I do? So I talked to my mum. She said, well, a bird in hand, it's so hard to get work. My goodness, wonderful, Helena. Oh, fabulous.
But Lynn still wasn't sure she'd accept the role. She wanted her father's advice. He was, after all, a major force in the British theatre, having been knighted in 1959 for his accomplishments.
He said, no, absolutely not. You shouldn't do it. You should finish your training. And I hung up the phone and I was angry beyond belief. I'd never felt such anger, which made me know that what I really wanted to do was do the job.
The show didn't garner exactly glittering reviews, but it did set Lynn's career on its way. The next year, 1962, Tony and Vanessa married. To many, it was a strange case of history repeating itself.
I think at the time I was on tour with a student company, and someone in the company very knowingly said, she's making the same mistake as her mother, meaning that she was marrying, obviously, an attractive bisexual man. But what's always struck me is how recklessly in love Vanessa was with Tony Richardson.
Tony's career was hotter than ever. In 1963, he won the Academy Award for Best Director for his movie Tom Jones. On May 11th of that year, he and Vanessa had their first child, a daughter, Natasha Jane. 1965 brought two more babies into the Redgrave fold, a daughter, Gemma, to Corin and his wife, and another daughter, Jolie Kim, to Vanessa and Tony. Tony was working non-stop now, often away from home, and by now he had earned a reputation as an actor's director.
You know, I think of what my husband, Tony Richardson, wonderful iconoclast, brilliant director, such fun to be with, such fun to work with. And he made it fun for everybody.
But the time Tony spent away from his family proved costly. By 1965, he was in love with one of his leading ladies, the French actress Jeanne Moreau. Vanessa and Tony divorced 2 years later.
It isn't tragic when a marriage ends. It depends how you play it. And you're probably aware that Vanessa and Tony remained very, very, very firm friends.
In 1966, Vanessa was set to star in a movie called Georgie Girl, but it never came to pass.
The rumor was that Vanessa tore up the script and threw it in the river Tiber. She was in Rome at the time. I like that story. I don't know if it's true, but that was the rumor.
Vanessa pulled out of the picture, and the lead role was then offered to Lynn. The coming-of-age story about a frumpy wallflower of a girl would be Lynn's biggest break yet.
No, è il mio.
Posso vederla domani?
See you domani. Hey, what about tonight? Thought you high tides are supposed to be fast workers.
Andremo al Colosseo.
The Colosseum, but I want to be alone with you. Hey, get on with it.
È un monumento interessante
e
antichissimo.
The role was made for Lynn Redgrave, who was slightly frumpy herself at the time. The reviews came out, and they were unanimously thumbs up.
It's clearly of the 60s, but unlike some of the 60s films, some of which I've been in, which feel like that was a hit. It is a classic, there's no question.
Not everyone in the 60s was quite as sexually successful as it was assumed. Some people were always left behind, and I think Lynn's performance must have symbolized what it was like to be the wallflower in that astonishing decade.
Lynn was nominated for an Academy Award as Best Actress in a Leading Role. One of her competitors in that category turned out to be her sister, Vanessa, for the movie Morgan, A Suitable Case for Treatment. And both Redgraves were up against a formidable opponent, Elizabeth Taylor, for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
And that is extremely rare. It essentially never happens. And even though they both lost, it was a historical moment just in the fact that they were both nominated.
If your sister won and you didn't, I mean, it would be a weird thing, wouldn't it? It would be a weird thing all round. So I think it's very good that Elizabeth Taylor won it.
Losing the Oscar might have stung a bit, but the Redgrave girls' careers were in full bloom. That same year, 1966, Vanessa had a small but memorable role in what would become one of the touchstones of 1960s cinema. The movie was Blow Up. In it, Vanessa played an elusive, mysterious beauty, unwittingly photographed by a hip young shutterbug played by David Hemmings. From the moment her character takes off her shirt in an avant-garde seduction scene, Vanessa Redgrave became a cultural icon. The Redgrave sisters were hot. In March 1967, they landed side by side on the cover of Time magazine. Together, they were considered the ultimate it girls of swinging 1960s London. they had achieved a level of fame rivaling their parents, and it was only the beginning. In many ways, the Redgraves owned the 1960s, each becoming a bigger star than ever. By the end of the decade, Sir Michael, who'd been knighted for his accomplishments in 1959, and his wife, Lady Rachel Kempson, had 6 grandchildren. As for their children, Vanessa, Lynn, and Corin, they were living lives that were arguably as dramatic offstage as they were on.
All families are strange, and I think the Redgraves are probably no more stranger than most of us. The difference is we know more about them because they are public figures.
In 1967, Vanessa's marriage to director Tony Richardson ended, and Lynn's marriage to director John Clark began. Soon after, Vanessa was wooed by Hollywood to play the lead in the musical Camelot, which led to her next love, her co-star, the dashing Italian actor Franco Nero. They were sparks on screen and eventually off.
I cannot live like this another day.
And this man we both love, what would you have us do? Force him to declare war on you? Where either you or he or both would be killed, and hundreds of others.
When I first met Franco, he was very unimpressed by me.
The first time he saw her, she really wasn't looking her best and sort of had glasses and the hair wasn't sort of done and, you know, she hadn't been made up at all and sort of just, you know, the light didn't quite catch her. He didn't understand why she was being cast for this extraordinary role.
Nevertheless, the two discovered they had a lot in common.
Franco and I just started doing things which we found out we both loved doing, like shooting clays and going fishing and riding horses.
Then when he finally saw her on set, he just was completely blown away by her brilliance and her beauty.
After Camelot wrapped, Vanessa and Franco were an item. And the next year, she gave another tour de force performance as the dancer Isadora Duncan. She was nominated for her second Academy Award in 2 years.
I thought she was incredible in Isadora. Probably when I was much younger and I saw her, I concentrated more on the costumes or something.
In 1969, Vanessa and Franco had a son, Carlo. Vanessa raised him in England with his sisters, and he spent holidays with his father in Italy. It was a happy, if unconventional, childhood. Vanessa and Franco stayed unmarried.
The romance of Vanessa Redgrave and Franco Nero is really epic. It's almost like a soap opera. They were young lovers, passionate lovers, fiery together. They had a son together, but maybe because there was almost too much passion there, and because Vanessa is a Redgrave after all, nothing can ever be normal, they couldn't make it work.
I think it was just that they were living in different countries and their careers were so busy, and there just came a point that it was like one had to give up everything for the other, and I think they were both just set on their roads.
I'm very grateful for the time I had with my sisters. I could have been raised perhaps by my father in Italy, but he tells me that this was partly his decision. So I've had experienced both worlds as obviously a sibling and as an only child.
When Vanessa was shooting Mary, Queen of Scots in 1970, which would become her third Oscar-nominated role, she fell in love with another co-star, actor Timothy Dalton. They were together for a few years.
Timothy, I consider a member of my family also. He's a great family friend and we love him, and all still very much in each other's lives.
By now, Vanessa's greatest passion was reserved for political causes. Civil rights in Ireland, the military dictatorship in Chile, Israeli treatment of Palestinians in the Middle East, the Vietnam War. Activism was a Redgrave family trademark.
To a large extent, Michael was where the rebellion started. Michael was blacklisted, one forgets, in the war by the BBC for being, I think, pro-communist. Ludicrous nowadays. But actually, he started the family's sense of rebellion, of not fitting in.
That was just the way the family was. They were outspoken in the best sense of the word. They said what was on their mind, and they were supportive of things that they believed in.
By 1974, Vanessa had joined ranks with her brother Corin in the WRP, the Workers' Revolutionary Party, and dedicated herself to being a socialist. She ran for parliament in 1974 and lost. Politics now took precedence over just about everything else.
I think for a long time, Vanessa and Corin were so wrapped up in the Workers' Revolutionary Party and their various admirable socialist causes that they didn't really have much time for the acting. Or if they did, it was always secondary to the political life.
I think that, you know, my mother did possibly, you know, make some mistakes that I now, as a mother myself, understand. You try and do your best. Nobody's got a rule book.
Inevitably, there were situations where, because of her beliefs, her convictions, you know, there might have been tension, and we may have felt as children that, you know, perhaps something might happen to our mother because of what she believed in.
And one of Vanessa's causes landed her in the hot seat. It was a documentary called The Palestinian that took a sympathetic look at the plight of the Palestinian people. In the U.S., Vanessa Redgrave was branded by many as an anti-Semite, and crowds of protesters stormed theaters where the movie was playing.
We are very appalled and very upset with the fact that Vanessa Redgrave, a known anti-Semite and now an enemy of the Jewish people, has decided to come into Los Angeles to show her piece of profanity.
Friends and family say Vanessa Redgrave was nothing more than misunderstood.
She is not anti-Semitic. It's the last thing she is. A lot of rubbish is talked about Vanessa and her politics. Quite a lot of nonsense.
In the midst of all the controversy, the movie Julia came out. Many say it was Vanessa's finest moment.
The scene with Jane Fonda in the restaurant. I saw so much of her, Vanessa, in it, and I couldn't stop crying.
Take out your comb. Oh, my comb. Oh, I still carry too much. There it is. Take it out and use it.
And I remember Ben putting his arms around me and saying, "Mom, it's okay, it's a movie, it's okay, it's a movie, she's not really dead." And it wasn't that I thought she was dead, I think it was just profoundly moving to me. I mean, it was moving to everybody who saw it, but it was profoundly moving to me that it seemed to embody so much of her.
It still haunts me to this day because there are a lot of, I think, parallels with her own sort of development and her own awareness of the world and what's really sort of happening.
The performance earned Vanessa her 4th Oscar nomination. This time she won, and her speech became one of the most infamous in the history of the Academy Awards, practically torpedoing her career.
I salute you, and I pay tribute to you, and I think you should be very proud that in the last few weeks you've stood firm, and you have refused to be intimidated by the threats of a small bunch of Zionist hoodlums whose behavior is an insult to the stature of Jews all over the world and to the great and heroic record of struggle against fascism and oppression.
To this day, Vanessa's family says the controversial Zionist hoodlums remark was referring not to Jews in Israel, but to 75 members of the Jewish Defense League who were burning an effigy of Vanessa Redgrave outside the auditorium that very night.
But of course the television cameras didn't show that. If you read it with a calm mind and with today's knowledge, it was a brave and certainly not anti-Semitic speech.
Although many came to her defense, it would be years before her career would recover. The name Redgrave had been known for excellence on stage and screen. Soon, it was also known for controversy and scandal. Vanessa Redgrave's controversial speech at the 1978 Academy Awards followed her for years. Many even objected to her playing a concentration camp survivor in the TV movie Playing for Time in 1980, still accusing her of being anti-Semitic because she had spoken out against Israel. And in 1982, a lawsuit against the Boston Symphony Orchestra, the BSO, for breach of contract and violation of her civil rights after they abruptly canceled her performances in Oedipus Rex. She claimed she was fired for her past politics and the possibility of protests. The BSO fought her in court for the next 2 years.
What do you think the significance of this case is in your mind?
The fundamental issue of my case is the issue of civil rights and blacklisting. My issue, and inevitably therefore, an issue which affects everybody.
Ultimately, she was awarded $27,500 in damages for breach of contract and an additional $12,000 for damages caused by the cancellation. Her civil rights claim was denied. While Lynn Redgrave rarely got political like her siblings, she was about to make some waves of her own at home in the U.S. She was in her 3rd season as star of a popular TV sitcom called House Calls, which earned her both an Emmy and a Golden Globe nomination when her 3rd child, daughter Annabelle, was born. It was 1981.
She wanted to bring me in to breastfeed me in her dressing room. She wasn't even asking to bring me in front of everyone, but they wouldn't let her.
I didn't want to nurse on the set like we're sitting here with lights pointing at us and cameras. No, it was never my intention to nurse on the set. This became a huge issue and I did sue the studio.
Lynn was fired. She sued Universal for wrongful dismissal and sexual discrimination. It was a bold move.
When my mother left House Calls, with the lawsuit, which was an ongoing battle for quite some time, I don't think that she got a whole lot of offers. I don't think she was particularly popular, certainly not in TV land.
They said that they had offered me an extra dressing room, that they had always offered me every sort of facility to change my schedule to accommodate my breastfeeding, that I was lying. I just wanted more money, and that was all I wanted to, that I had used this as a ploy.
The case lingered in the California courts for 7 years, and Lynn ended up persona non grata in Hollywood.
It was a pretty terrifying time, quite honestly, which ended after many years with my losing the battle but winning the war, in that I totally lost the case, lost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, not to mention the fact that for as long as the case was pending, there were many people who didn't employ me or wouldn't employ me because maybe that would offend somewhere. Okay, just easier to say, let's not do that.
Lynn fought for what she believed in, and even though she lost the case, she felt victorious as studios began to offer on-site daycare.
It makes me very proud of her. I mean, that's great to have done that, even if she didn't win and everyone kind of shunned her. I think she feels like she was kind of blacklisted for a while after that.
Lynn was out of work for much of the 1980s, but then something miraculous happened. She had battled her weight most of her adult life. Now, Lynn finally lost the weight she wanted and kept it off with the help of Weight Watchers. And it just happened they were looking for a spokesperson. She jumped at the opportunity.
My film career was essentially completely at a halt. I mean, forget it. And so was my television career to a great extent. And suddenly I'm offered a really, really, really nice contract to do something that I did actually believe in. And they saved my life both financially and, in fact, by putting myself forward as some sort of a role model. It actually kept me on the straight and narrow for long enough to totally beat the old binge and starve routine.
For many Americans, the Weight Watchers ad campaign was Lynn Redgrave's most memorable role.
This is living. If you've ever had a fajita, then you know that it really is nita, filled with onions and peppers and meat. Ah, delicious Weight Watchers fajitas. New chicken or beef fajitas. This is living.
The fact that she was willing to take a public role in something as personal and, for some people, embarrassing situation as needing to lose weight really resonated with people. They really felt as though any sort of upper crust British aristocracy bearings that she'd once had been stripped away, and she was now connecting with people on a much more personal level.
All I remember, and what everybody else remembers, is this is living, and whipping off the red tent dress or whatever it was she was wearing.
All the Redgrave kids had fought their battles, and now their father, Sir Michael Redgrave, was fighting his own. By 1985, he was deteriorating rapidly from the effects of Parkinson's disease. He was living in the family retreat, Wilkeswater, working on his memoirs with the help of his son Corin, when he made an emotional confession.
So I think Michael said, I've been bisexual, and that's putting it mildly, or that's the least of it, for most of my life. And I think Corin had to feign innocence and surprise, having had a pretty shrewd idea, because of his father's continued absences, because of the fact gentlemen, friends of his father, did actually live with the family for long periods of time.
The fact that he was gay or bisexual at a time when you could give, you would be indeed shamed and humiliated and penalized and possibly put in prison. That undoubtedly did affect him. That pains me terribly to think how much of his life he was anxious for us, for himself as a father, for him, for us as children, that this might become known about him.
After having confessed his deepest secret, Sir Michael Redgrave died one day after his 77th birthday, on March 21st, 1985. It was a blow to the family, but life went on. In 1990, the world got a chance to see Vanessa and Lynn together on the stage in the Chekhov play, Three Sisters, in London's West End.
Producing Three Sisters was a joyous experience, and the girls were working together for the first time in a play in the West End. And it was just wonderful. We all had a very, 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 very good time.
The third sister in Three Sisters was played by their niece, Corin's daughter, Gemma, who was just entering the family business.
It was absolutely one of the best, if not the best, experiences of my career. It was incredibly challenging and really quite frightening for me, because I don't think up to that point either Lynn or Vanessa had seen my work.
She has a gravity which is very remarkable, especially in a young person.
Another generation of acting Redgraves was on its way, but no one could have predicted the highs and lows that were just around the corner. By 1991, Vanessa Redgrave's daughters, Natasha and Jolie Richardson, were embarking on their own acting careers. But then there was another tragedy in the family. Their father, Vanessa's ex-husband, Tony Richardson, died of AIDS.
I remember that time me and my sisters all struggling to cope with it, and I was pregnant at the time with what would have been his first grandchild. So it was a very heightened time for everyone.
Lynn was still in the wake of her breastfeeding lawsuit and not getting much work, so she did the next best thing. She created work for herself, writing a play called Shakespeare for My Father. It was based on her somewhat distant relationship with Sir Michael.
I was still obsessed with this idea that I never got to see behind the mask. Who was that? Who really was he?
I think it was very cathartic for her to not only write the play, but to perform in it for as long as she did.
I thought it got extraordinary thinking behind it, because she wrote the text as well as performing it. And a wonderful glimpse through her eyes of my father and my mother.
It is just heartbreaking and enchanting, and I think one of the great solo shows of all time.
Corin Redgrave had taken many years off to pursue political interests, but he was now making a professional comeback. In the early 1990s, he was in the Oscar-nominated In the Name of the Father.
Hatred. So why don't you just let it off your chest, huh?
And Corin also returned to the stage.
When we are born, we cry that we are come to this great stage of fools.
It's almost as if as Michael's death recedes into memory, Corin is able to come into his own. And sometimes that does happen, that you have to escape the shadow of a parent before you can become your own person.
He was extraordinarily well-known and respected, and he just wasn't as, first of all, he wasn't as exposed in the movies, and second of all, he wasn't as exposed in America. But in London, Corin Redgrave was every bit of Redgrave and very respected on stage.
Lynn's career was about to be reborn too. Director Scott Hicks came to see her one-woman show and decided to cast her in the 1996 movie Shine. Then, in 1998, she played a Hungarian maid named Hannah in the movie Gods and Monsters, which would earn her first Academy Award nomination since Georgie Girl back in 1966.
You must think I'm terrible, Hannah.
I don't think you're anything anymore. Just back from the hospital already, you're chasing after boys. What a character, and I love playing her so much that when I finished filming, which was before the film actually finished, it was a few days before, so it was my final day, and I said, done my final shot, and hugged all the crew. I went and sat in my room, and I couldn't take my costume off. I didn't want to leave.
But the joy of being nominated for an Oscar was soon shattered. While promoting the film, Lynn learned that her husband, director John Clark, had fathered a child out of wedlock. The story hit the tabloids and threw her life into a tailspin.
It was really hard to see them both go through that after so many years. They were together for 32 years. It's a hell of a long time.
That's my entire youth, middle age, everything. And that's a very long time to have always been a couple, to have been a we instead of an I.
After the breakup of her marriage, Lynn lost the Best Supporting Actress Oscar to Dame Judi Dench for her 8-minute appearance in the movie Shakespeare in Love. It was a blow to the whole family.
I think we were a little bit disappointed that it went, I mean, Judi Dench is amazing, but we were kind of thinking like for, what was it, 8 minutes? So we were kind of like, next time you're going to have to do a much smaller role.
It's not to take anything away from her, but of course, you know, being my mother's son, I'm like, damn it. You know, I wanted her to win. Particularly since all that was going on. It would have been just so great.
The emotional roller coaster was about to take yet another hairpin turn. On December 13th, 2002, 59-year-old Lynn Redgrave woke up in the middle of the night and made a heart-stopping discovery. There was a large lump in her breast. Within days, her worst fears were confirmed.
A very, very nice doctor examined me. He said, we'll do a needle biopsy, but I have to tell you now that it will not tell me anything that I don't know already.
She just told me on the street. She said, don't worry, I caught it early, I have a lump, got some tests, it is cancer, but it's gonna be okay. And you know, she was being very motherly and just trying to make it sound okay, if that's possible.
She attacked it. She was a trooper. She was like, I'm getting my boob hacked off, and yeah, that's the way it's going to be, and we're going to battle this thing. You know, there was never any, you know, oh, criminy, this is going to be awful, and I'm in for a long road, and poor me. None of that, ever.
Out of this traumatic experience came something remarkable, a newly liberated outlook on life. It also brought a newfound sense of closeness between Lynn and her sister Vanessa.
My sister was here most of last year, and she was so wonderful. It makes you very close, you know, makes you closer than close, because it brings us all up short. You know, is time limited? Could be. Okay, let's not miss tea today, you know.
And something else came out of that experience, a book called Journal. Text by Lynn Redgrave, photos by her daughter, Annabelle Clark, who was there every step of the way. It was a bold statement from a beloved figure.
You know, a lot of people, when they're sick, when they have cancer, they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to feel, they don't want to appear weak, they don't want to appear that there's anything wrong. And I remember watching her always be so supportive of women's causes in health.
She was the one that people felt was closest to themselves, and the honesty and the bravery that she showed while she was battling breast cancer struck a huge chord with people.
Annabelle's photos and Lynn's journal entries captured just about every step of the grueling process, from post-op to radiation to chemotherapy to the inevitable hair loss.
That was a moment where we traded places, I think, where, as she puts it, she became 4 years old. I just had to come in and be the mother and say, it's going to be okay. I'm going to shave your head. It's going to be much better to look at if it's just clean.
While Lynn was in the midst of recovery in New York, her mother was visiting. Lady Rachel Kempson, the Redgrave family matriarch, was 92 years old and in failing health. Annabelle captured a powerful photo of her grandmother in her final days.
My heart stopped when I first saw it, and only Annabelle would think to do it in the mirror, and the fact that one door was closed and the other open, I never would have thought of until I saw the picture, and there she is, about to leave us.
On May 23, 2003, Lady Rachel Kempson died peacefully at the home of her granddaughter, Natasha Richardson.
She was, surrounded by music and flowers and her family, and you couldn't really ask for a better way. She wasn't in a hospital or, in pain, so that's the way we should all go.
She was buried near Natasha's home in New York State.
When the Redgraves buried the original matriarch of the family, Rachel Kempson, in the cemetery in Millbrook, New York, they could never have imagined how soon and how frequently they would be returning to that cemetery. And it just seemed almost too much for one family to have to bear.
In the middle of the first decade of the 2000s, the Redgrave family was on the upswing. Corinne Redgrave was acting again. Lynn seemed to be winning the battle against cancer. And Vanessa continued both her acting career and her political activism.
We're living in a world where what we do with each other and for each other is going to mean the world exists, so it all goes down.
The same passion that Vanessa brings to her acting, she has always brought to her activism, to her political beliefs, and to her philanthropic efforts. She continues to be a goodwill ambassador. She's still very active politically.
And she'll never stop how she's continued to support the causes that she supports and continue to work and do fine work on stage. It's just an amazing force of nature.
And, stunning her fans, she renewed her longtime love with the father of her son, Carlo, Franco Nero. They began appearing together in public and referring to each other as husband and wife. In the film Letters to Juliet, which came out a few years later, fans could see the love on screen. In the meantime, the next generation solidified the Redgrave birthright. Although not all of them have taken to the stage. Lynn's son is a commercial pilot, for instance. In 2003, Vanessa's daughter, Jolie Richardson, began a successful run on the television series Nip Tuck.
I think Jolie Richardson is one of the finest actors of her generation, too. And she's also incredibly talented on the stage. It's just that she had a hit TV series, so she stayed with it for a while.
Between the fact that her last name isn't Redgrave and she has a flawless American accent, many people have no idea that she's British and that she's a Redgrave. It's completely eluded a lot of her fans.
But the greatest success in that generation was Natasha Richardson.
For fans who didn't know of Natasha Richardson's stage work, they were probably best familiar with her for The Parent Trap, in which she played the mother of twins, both played by Lindsay Lohan. So to many people, and certainly to fans of Disney films, she was Lindsay Lohan's mom.
Natasha's greatest triumphs were on Broadway. It's where she started her romance with her husband, Liam Neeson, and she continued to return to the New York stage. She boldly took on the leading role in Cabaret, staged in the location of the famed discotheque Studio 54, which has been renovated as a theater. It was a massive hit for which she won the coveted Tony Award.
Remember, she was doing that in the shadow of Liza Minnelli, so it took a lot of guts to take that role on Broadway, and she made it her own. And I think now, and probably for many generations to come, when people think about Sally Bowles, they'll think about Natasha Richardson.
In 2005, she returned to Broadway, playing Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire.
It never seemed to scare her to take on these iconic roles. I thought she really showed the vulnerability of Blanche Dubois in a way that I'd never seen it shown before.
The family had long collaborated with each other. Carlo Nero is a director, and Vanessa has acted in a few of her son's films. And Vanessa took a recurring role with Jolie in Nip Tuck. But for a remarkable period in 2005, Natasha was appearing in Streetcar, Her Aunt Lynn was a few blocks away and the constant wife, and across the river at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, her mother was appearing in Hecuba. But during this time, a crisis. Across the Atlantic, Corinne Redgrave collapsed at a public meeting in England. It was a heart attack.
I remember the family getting together and saying to each other, what should we do? And their feeling very strongly was that Corinne would have wanted the show to go on, because that was the sort of ethos of the Redgrave family. And so the shows went on. They didn't miss performances, and all 3 shows went on.
Corinne survived, as did the Redgrave tradition of activism. Natasha became a major spokesperson for AIDS research.
Natasha lost her father to AIDS, and it's not surprising that she was very active with a charity organization known as AMFAR, which is dedicated to eradicating AIDS, raising awareness, raising funds. This became her passion in life and something that she felt very strongly about.
Then, the Redgraves' fortunes turned around with a sickening abruptness. While taking a beginner skiing lesson in Quebec, Canada, Natasha Richardson took what at first seemed like a minor spill.
The timeline of Natasha's accident is terrifying. Hearing that she'd been in an accident, and then hearing, well, no, it was a minor accident. She fell and hit her head, but she was talking, she was joking afterwards. She waved off medical attention. So it would seem that she would have been fine. And then hearing a few hours later, no, she's been rushed to a hospital in the area. And thinking, well, all right, well, she should get treatment there. And then hearing, no, she's being airlifted to a more intensive hospital. And then the news got worse and worse and worse. And then the news came that no, she was being transported to New York so that her family, her friends, her loved ones could say goodbye.
It's just, you can't believe that somebody like that is taken away in such a strange and arbitrary kind of minor accident.
Natasha's death has made everyone stop and think. They're all remembering the fact that Natasha Richardson felt fine after she fell, and a few hours later, she was dead. That haunts people to this day.
Now people are wearing helmets skiing, wearing helmets bicycle riding, who didn't wear it before. And I really believe that thousands of lives will be saved because Natasha's was taken. So even in death, this extraordinary woman had a profound impact on other people's lives.
The family gathered to bury her in the cemetery near her home with Liam Neeson in Millbrook, New York. It was the same cemetery where her grandmother rested. Devastated, Neeson threw himself into his own work.
The Redgraves are a classic, the show must go on sort of mentality. That's something that their family has always had. And it's interesting that Liam Neeson seems to have exactly the same mentality.
Then, barely more than a year later, Natasha's uncle, Corinne Redgrave, succumbed to his illnesses in England. And just a month after that, the clan returned yet again to the family cemetery in New York to bury the legendary Lynn Redgrave. Her many fans have marveled at how Vanessa Redgrave has continued on.
Watching what she's gone through and how she's held the family together through all the adversity of the past couple of years, how she's been a support to Liam, how she's been with the grandkids, and how she's continued to support the causes that she supports and continued to work and do fine work on stage. It's just an amazing force of nature.
Her interpretation of the title role in Driving Miss Daisy was so popular on Broadway, the run had to be extended, and plans commenced to transfer the production to London's West End. Predictions that this is the end of the line for the amazing Redgrave legacy are premature. In fact, an unprecedented 7th generation is likely to emerge. Jolie's daughter, Daisy Bevan, has already appeared in films. Carlo Nero has children, as does Gemma Redgrave. And then there are the progeny of Natasha Richardson and Liam Neeson.
With parents like Liam Neeson and Natasha Richardson, the 2 sons that they had together would seem to have all the right genetic makings of superstars. There should be nothing holding them back except for their own desires, should they want a future in show business.
This dynasty continues to be strong. It hasn't petered out. You find in a family occasionally that there are 2 actors who produce people who can't act. and they go and do other things. That has not happened here.
Well, the Redgraves are theater royalty. I don't know if there's any equivalent in America, starting with Michael Redgrave and going on down through the generations.
There's no other family in the history of the performing arts who have been so acclaimed, so lauded, so awarded as the Redgraves.